Jamal Kim checked his watch as he walked through the glass doors of Tech Vision Solutions. He was 15 minutes early for his final interview. This was the fourth round, and he felt good about his chances. The previous 3 interviews had gone well. The engineers seemed impressed with his work. His projects from MIT spoke for themselves, and his 5 years of experience at a top tech company in San Francisco had prepared him for this moment. The lobby was modern and clean. Large windows let in natural light. A young woman sat behind the reception desk typing on her computer. Jamal approached with a smile and gave his name. She looked up, returned the smile, and asked him to wait. She picked up the phone and called someone. Within 2 minutes, 2 people walked toward him. A man in his mid-40s with gray hair and an expensive suit extended his hand. This was Derek Morrison, the lead recruiter. Next to him stood Susan Walsh, a woman in her late 30s wearing a blazer and a tight smile. Both shook Jamal's hand, but something felt off. Their smiles did not reach their eyes. Derek's handshake was quick and weak, as if he did not want to touch Jamal's hand for too long. "Welcome to Tech Vision," Derek said. His voice was flat. "We have your interview set up in conference room B. Follow us." They walked through the office. Employees sat at desks focused on their screens. Some glanced up as the group passed. Jamal noticed the office was mostly white and Asian employees. He saw only 2 other black people in the entire space. This was not unusual in tech, but it always made him aware of how he stood out. Derek led them to a glass-walled conference room. Jamal could see everything inside from the hallway, and anyone passing by could see into the room. 2 young people sat at the far end of the table with laptops open. They looked up when the door opened. "These are our recruiting interns," Susan said, gesturing vaguely in their direction. "Maya Park and Ryan Chen. They are shadowing us today to learn the interview process. I hope you don't mind." "Not at all," Jamal said. He smiled at the interns. Maya, a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, gave him a warm smile. Ryan, a young man with glasses, nodded politely. Both seemed nervous, which made sense. They were probably new to this. Derek sat down across from Jamal and made a show of opening his folder. He pulled out Jamal's resume and studied it as if seeing it for the first time. Jamal knew this was an act. Derek would have reviewed the resume before the interview. This was a power move, making Jamal wait in silence. "So," Derek finally said, looking up. "MIT, that is impressive." The way he said it made it sound like a question, not a compliment. "How did you manage to get into MIT?" Jamal felt the first small warning sign go off in his mind. The question was odd. People usually asked what he studied at MIT, not how he got in. But he kept his voice steady and professional. "I had strong grades in high school and did well on my entrance exams," Jamal said. "I also participated in several computer science competitions and won awards at the state level." MIT was looking for students with a passion for technology and problem solving. Right, Derek said, nodding slowly. He exchanged a glance with Susan. She had a small smirk on her face. "And these days schools have certain quotas they need to fill." That must have helped. The second warning sign. Jamal's jaw tightened slightly, but he maintained his composure. He had dealt with this kind of thing before. Some people always assumed he got opportunities because of his race, not his abilities. It never stopped hurting, but he had learned not to show it. "MIT admitted me based on my qualifications," Jamal said firmly. "My grades and test scores were well above their admission standards. I graduated with honors and a 3.9 GPA. Susan leaned forward. Of course. No one is questioning your credentials." Her tone suggested she was doing exactly that. "We just want to make sure you can handle the pressure here. This is not like other places. Our standards are very high. We work with top-tier engineers." Jamal noticed Maya shift uncomfortably in her seat. Ryan was staring at his laptop screen, but his fingers were not moving on the keyboard. They were clearly listening to every word. "I understand," Jamal said. "That is why I am interested in this position. I want to work with the best. In my previous role, I led a team of 8 engineers. We built a system that handles 2 million transactions per day. I am confident I can meet your standards." Derek leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "Leading a team is one thing, but can you do the actual technical work? Sometimes people get promoted into leadership roles even when their technical skills are lacking." This was the third strike. Jamal knew what was happening now. These 2 had already decided they did not want to hire him. This interview was just a formality. They were going through the motions, probably to fill some diversity interview requirement. The realization made him angry, but he kept his face neutral. I write code every day, Jamal said. I believe leaders should stay technical. I can show you my GitHub profile if you want to see examples of my work. I also have references from my previous manager and teammates who can speak to my technical abilities. That won't be necessary, Susan said quickly. Too quickly. She looked at Derek. I think we have a good sense of things. Derek nodded. He picked up his phone, which had been sitting on the table. It buzzed with a notification and he glanced at the screen. Actually, I need to take this call. It will just be a minute. Susan, come with me. We can discuss the next steps. Both recruiters stood up and walked toward the door. They stepped just outside the conference room into the hallway. The glass walls meant Jamal could still see them. They were only about 10 feet away from the door, which Derek had left slightly open. Jamal sat in silence. He could feel Maya and Ryan's eyes on him, then quickly looking away. The interns were clearly uncomfortable. Maya opened her mouth as if to say something, then closed it. She looked at Ryan, who just shook his head slightly. Through the open door, Jamal could hear Derek's voice. He was not even trying to speak quietly. Either he did not care if Jamal heard him, or he did not think Jamal could hear. Either way, the words carried clearly into the conference room. Did you see his resume? Derek said with a laugh. This is ridiculous. There is no way he did all that on his own. He probably had help writing it. Maybe he had a diversity advisor or something. You know how these programs work. Jamal's hands, resting on the table, curled into fists, but he kept his breathing steady. He did not move. He did not react. Years of facing discrimination had taught him to control his emotions in moments like this. Show anger, and they would call him aggressive. Show hurt, and they would call him weak. So he sat still and listened. Susan's voice joined in. I know, but we have to interview him. HR is watching our diversity numbers. We need to hit a certain quota of diverse candidates. After this, we can check the box and move on. At least we can reject him quietly, Derek said. We will say he is not a culture fit. That is always a safe excuse. No one can argue with culture fit. Maya's face had gone pale. She looked at Jamal and their eyes met for a brief moment. She looked ashamed, as if she was somehow responsible for what was happening. Jamal gave her a small nod, letting her know it was not her fault. He appreciated that she looked upset by this. At least someone in the room besides him saw how wrong this was. Ryan was typing something on his laptop now, his fingers moving quickly. He glanced toward the door, then at Jamal, then back at his screen. His jaw was clenched tight. Derek's voice grew louder. Let me call Brennan from the other team. He owes me a favor. Derek tapped his phone screen and put the call on speaker. A male voice answered after 2 rings. Hey Derek, what's up? Hey Brennan. I am stuck here interviewing another affirmative action case. Just wanted to give you a heads up that this is going to take longer than I thought. Brennan laughed on the other end of the phone. Diversity quota season. Good luck with that. Yeah. We will go through the motions and reject him later. Susan and I need to keep our numbers up. HR loves their diversity metrics. Susan chimed in, her voice carrying through the speaker. Maybe we can string this along for a few weeks. It will help our quarterly interview numbers. Jamal closed his eyes for a moment. This was worse than he thought. They were not just planning to reject him. They were planning to waste his time, to use him as a statistic while never intending to give him a fair chance. When he opened his eyes, Maya was whispering to Ryan. Her voice was so quiet Jamal almost could not hear it. This is not right, Maya said. We should report this. This is discrimination. Ryan nodded but looked scared. What if they fire us? We are just interns. They have power here. I don't care, Maya whispered back. This is wrong. That man deserves better than this. Jamal heard every word. He felt a small spark of hope. At least these 2 young people understood. At least they saw the injustice happening right in front of them. Derek ended his phone call and turned back toward the conference room. Susan walked beside him, and both of them had returned to their fake professional faces. The transformation was instant, smiles back in place, voices calm and measured. They walked back into the room and sat down. Derek folded his hands on the table and looked at Jamal with that same tight smile. Sorry about that, Derek said. Where were we? Derek and Susan stood just outside the glass conference room. They could see Jamal sitting calmly at the table through the transparent walls. The interns were still at the other end of the table, silent and uncomfortable. Derek did not care. He had done hundreds of these interviews and this one was no different in his mind. "This is such a waste of time," Derek said to Susan, his voice carrying more than he realized. The conference room door was not fully closed. It was open just a crack and sound traveled easily through the gap. "Why do we have to interview people we know we are not going to hire?" Susan shrugged and checked her phone. "Company policy. We need to hit our diversity interview numbers. HR tracks everything now. If we don't interview enough candidates from different backgrounds, they flag our department. It is all about checking boxes," Derek said. He was scrolling through his phone now, barely paying attention to the fact that they were standing right outside a room with 3 people who could potentially hear them. "Did you see his resume? MIT, 5 years of experience, all these projects. It looks good on paper, but come on. We both know how he really got into MIT. "Affirmative action," Susan said with a knowing nod. "Same way he probably got his job in San Francisco. Companies love diversity hires. It makes them look good. But when it comes to actual work, these people usually can't keep up." Inside the conference room, Jamal sat perfectly still. Every word reached his ears. His face showed no emotion, but inside anger burned. He had worked so hard for everything he achieved. He had earned every grade, every award, every promotion. And these 2 people were dismissing all of it based on nothing but the color of his skin. Maya looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Her face was red and she kept glancing between the door and Jamal. She knew this was wrong. She knew she should say something. But she was just an intern. What power did she have? Ryan was not looking at anyone. He was staring at his laptop screen, his hands frozen on the keyboard. He had heard stories about discrimination in the workplace, but he had never witnessed it so openly before. It made him sick to his stomach. Derek pulled up something on his phone and showed it to Susan. Both of them laughed. From inside the room, Jamal could see Derek's face through the glass. He was showing Susan something on his screen and making exaggerated facial expressions. They were clearly mocking him. "Look at this," Derek said, turning his phone toward Susan. "I was looking at his LinkedIn profile earlier. Check out this photo. He is trying so hard to look professional. It is almost cute," Susan laughed. "You are terrible. But honestly, I don't see him fitting in here. Our team is used to working with people who actually earned their positions. Can you imagine him trying to keep up with our engineers? It would be embarrassing for everyone." "We will let him down easy," Derek said. "We will send the standard rejection email. Thank you for your interest, but we have decided to move forward with other candidates." Nice and clean. No one can complain. "What about those diversity metrics HR keeps pushing?" Susan asked. "That is why we are interviewing him in the first place," Derek explained. "We can tell HR we interviewed him. We gave him a fair shot. It is not our fault if he was not qualified. They can't force us to hire someone who does not meet our standards." "Our standards?" Susan repeated with a smirk. "I like that." Very diplomatic, Derek's phone rang. He looked at the screen and answered it, putting the call on speaker without thinking. A man's voice came through. "Derek, hey, it is Tom Brennan. You called?" "Yeah, Tom, listen, I am in the middle of something. Interviewing another diversity candidate. You know how it is. HR is making us hit our quotas." Tom laughed on the other end. "Oh man, I feel you. We had to do the same thing last month. Interviewed like 5 candidates we knew we were not going to hire, just to make the numbers look good." "Exactly," Derek said. "This guy has an MIT degree and everything, but you and I both know that does not mean what it used to. Schools lower their standards now to let more diverse students in. It is all about optics." "For sure," Tom agreed. "So what are you going to do?" "String him along for a bit," Derek said casually. "We will tell him we need time to make a decision. That gives us a few more weeks to count him toward our interview metrics. Then we will reject him quietly." "Standard procedure," Susan jumped in. "We might even schedule a fake follow-up interview. Really pad those numbers. HR loves when we do multiple rounds with diverse candidates." Both Derek and Tom laughed. The sound made Maya's stomach turn. She looked at Ryan, and this time, she spoke at a normal volume. She did not care anymore if Derek and Susan heard her. "This is discrimination," Maya said. Her voice was shaking, but she was firm. "They are making hiring decisions based on race. That is illegal." Ryan looked up from his laptop. He had been pretending not to listen, but he could not anymore. "You are right. This is completely wrong. We should report this." "Report it to who?" Maya asked. "Derek is our supervisor. Susan is his second in command. If we report them, they could fire us. We are just interns. We have no protection. We have to do something," Ryan said. He was surprised by the strength in his own voice. If we stay quiet, we are part of the problem. Inside the conference room, Jamal heard their conversation. He turned his head slightly and looked at the two interns. They were young and scared, but they were trying to do the right thing. He gave them a small nod. It was subtle, but both Maya and Ryan saw it. Jamal was telling them it was okay. He understood their fear, but he also appreciated that they cared. Outside, Derek was still on the phone with Tom. Anyway, I need to wrap this up and get back in there. We will finish this interview, shake his hand, thank him for coming, and then never think about him again. Good luck, Tom said. Better you than me. Derek ended the call and turned to Susan. Okay, let's go back in and finish this. The sooner we get him out of here, the sooner we can grab lunch. I am starving. Where do you want to go? Susan asked. That new Italian place down the street? I heard their pasta is amazing. They were talking about lunch plans while standing outside a room where they had just destroyed a qualified candidate's chances based on nothing but prejudice. The casual cruelty of it was stunning. Derek and Susan walked back into the conference room. Their faces changed immediately. The smirks disappeared. The mocking tone vanished. They put on their professional masks again, as if nothing had happened. Sorry about that interruption, Derek said, sitting down across from Jamal. Work calls? You know how it is. Jamal looked at him with calm, steady eyes. I understand completely. Something in Jamal's tone made Susan pause. She looked at him carefully, trying to read his expression. Did he hear them? She could not tell. His face gave nothing away. So, Derek continued, I think we have covered everything we need to cover today. Do you have any questions for us? Jamal paused for a long moment. He could ask them about their comments. He could confront them right here. But he knew that would accomplish nothing. They would deny it. They would twist his words. They would make him look like the problem. No questions, Jamal said. I think I learned everything I needed to know about this company today. Derek missed the meaning behind those words completely. He smiled. Great. Well, we will review your application and get back to you within 1 to 2 weeks. We have a few more candidates to interview and then we will make our decision. Both Derek and Susan stood up, signaling the interview was over. They extended their hands for a final handshake. Jamal stood and shook their hands, though it took effort to touch them after what he had heard. Thank you for your time, Derek said. Yes, thank you for coming in, Susan added. We will be in touch soon. Jamal picked up his bag and his folder. He walked toward the door, then stopped. He turned back to look at Maya and Ryan one more time. You two seem like good people, Jamal said. I hope this company treats you better than they treated me today. And I hope you remember what you witnessed here. It will help you decide what kind of professionals you want to become. Maya's eyes filled with tears. She nodded, unable to speak. Ryan swallowed hard and nodded too. Derek and Susan exchanged confused glances. They did not understand what Jamal meant. Or maybe they did, but did not want to admit it. Jamal left the conference room and walked through the office. Employees at their desks looked up as he passed. Some smiled politely. Others ignored him. None of them knew what had just happened. None of them knew that discrimination had occurred right in their workplace, in a glass-walled room where anyone could have seen it if they had been paying attention. When Jamal reached the lobby, he did not head straight for the exit. Instead, he stopped at the reception desk. The young woman looked up and smiled. How was your interview? She asked politely. Interesting, Jamal said. Can you tell me who I should speak to if I need to file a complaint with Human Resources? The receptionist's smile faded. She looked concerned. Is everything okay? I need to speak with someone from HR, Jamal said firmly but politely. It is important. The receptionist picked up her phone and made a call. She spoke quietly for a moment, then hung up. Linda Harrison, our VP of Human Resources, is in the building today. She can see you in about 10 minutes if you are willing to wait. I will wait, Jamal said. He sat down in one of the lobby chairs. His heart was pounding, but his resolve was strong. He pulled out his phone and opened his notes app. While everything was fresh in his mind, he began typing out exactly what had happened. Every comment. Every word he had heard through that open door. Every expression he had seen on Derek's and Susan's faces. He would not let this go. Not this time. He had stayed silent too many times before. He had let other incidents slide, telling himself it was not worth the fight. But this was different. This was so blatant, so cruel, so deliberate, and there were witnesses. Maya and Ryan had seen everything. They had heard everything. They could corroborate his story. 10 minutes passed. A tall woman with short gray hair and a navy blue suit walked into the lobby. She looked professional and serious. This was Linda Harrison. "Mr. Kim?" she asked, approaching Jamal. "Yes." Jamal stood up and shook her hand. "I am Linda Harrison, VP of Human Resources. I understand you need to speak with me. Please follow me to my office." Jamal followed Linda through a different section of the building. They walked past more offices and conference rooms until they reached a corner office with her name on the door. Linda gestured for him to sit in one of the chairs across from her desk. She sat down and pulled out a notepad. "Please tell me what happened," Linda said. Her tone was professional but not cold. She seemed genuinely ready to listen. Jamal took a deep breath and began to talk. He told her everything. Jamal sat across from Linda Harrison in her office. The room was clean and organized. Certificates and awards hung on the walls. A family photo sat on her desk, showing Linda with 2 teenage children and a husband. Everything about the space suggested this was a woman who took her job seriously. Linda had her notepad open and a pen in her hand. She looked directly at Jamal, waiting for him to speak. There was no judgment in her eyes, no doubt. She was ready to listen. "I want to file a formal complaint about discrimination," Jamal began. His voice was calm and steady. He had practiced what he would say while sitting in the lobby. "During my interview today, the 2 recruiters, Derek Morrison and Susan Walsh, made racist comments about me. They mocked my qualifications and openly discussed rejecting me based on my race." Linda's expression did not change, but Jamal saw her grip on the pen tighten. "Can you tell me exactly what happened? Start from the beginning and include as much detail as you can remember." Jamal took a deep breath and began his story. He told her about arriving for the interview and immediately sensing something was off about Derek and Susan's behavior. He described how they questioned how he got into MIT, implying he did not earn his admission. He explained their comments about culture fit and their suggestion that he could not keep up with the other engineers. Then they stepped outside the conference room, Jamal continued. They stood just outside where I could still see them through the glass walls. The door was open slightly and I could hear everything they said. Linda was writing quickly, capturing every word. What did they say? Jamal recited the comments as accurately as he could remember. He told her about Derek saying Jamal probably had help writing his resume. About Susan talking about diversity quotas and checking boxes. About the phone call with Tom Brennan where they discussed stringing him along to pad their interview numbers. They called me an affirmative action case, Jamal said. The words hurt to repeat. They said schools lower their standards to let diverse students in. They discussed rejecting me before they even came back into the room. They had already made up their minds based on nothing but my race. Linda stopped writing and looked up at Jamal. Her jaw was tight. Were there any witnesses to this? Yes, Jamal said. 2 interns were in the room with me the entire time. Maya Park and Ryan Chen, they heard everything too. In fact, I heard them whispering to each other that this was wrong and they should report it. Linda made a note of their names. Is there anything else you want to add? When Derek and Susan came back into the room, they acted like nothing had happened. They put on fake smiles and told me they would be in touch. But I knew they had no intention of giving me a fair chance. They had already decided to reject me, and the only reason they interviewed me at all was to meet some diversity requirement. I am very sorry this happened to you, Linda said. She sounded genuine. This is completely unacceptable behavior, and it violates multiple company policies. I want you to know that I take this complaint seriously, and I will investigate immediately. Jamal felt a weight lift slightly off his shoulders. He had been worried that HR might not believe him, or might try to protect the recruiters. But Linda seemed different. Are you willing to wait here while I begin the investigation? Linda asked. I want to speak with the interns and review any available evidence while this is still fresh. Yes, Jamal said. I will wait. Linda stood up and gestured to a small sofa in her office. Please make yourself comfortable. Can I get you water or coffee? Water would be great, Jamal said. Linda left the office and returned a minute later with a bottle of water. She handed it to Jamal, then picked up her phone and made a call. Jamal could only hear her side of the conversation. Yes, I need you to pull security footage from conference room B for this morning, between 9:30 and 11. Yes, all of it. I also need the audio if the system captured any. This is urgent. Send it to my email immediately. She hung up and made another call. I need Maya Park and Ryan Chen to come to my office right away. Yes, the recruiting interns. Tell them this is not a disciplinary matter, but it is urgent. After she hung up, Linda looked at Jamal. Our security system records video from all conference rooms. Some rooms also have audio capabilities, especially the ones near the lobby. Conference room B is one of them. If your interview was recorded, we will have evidence of everything that happened. Jamal felt hope surge through him. He had not known about the cameras. This changed everything. It would not be his word against theirs. There would be proof. In the meantime, Linda continued, I need to speak with the interns separately. Would you mind waiting here? I will have them come to a different room so you don't have to see each other before I get their statements. That makes sense, Jamal said. Linda left the office. Jamal sat on the sofa and sipped his water. His mind was racing. What would happen next? Would Derek and Susan be held accountable? Or would the company find a way to protect them? He did not have to wait long for his first answer. Within minutes, Linda returned to her office and sat at her computer. She clicked her mouse a few times and Jamal heard video-audio playing from her speakers. He could not see the screen from where he sat, but he could hear voices. Derek's voice. Susan's voice. His own voice. Linda watched the video in silence. Her expression grew darker as the footage played. Jamal heard the moment when Derek and Susan stepped outside the conference room. He heard Derek's comment about his resume, Susan's laugh, the phone call with Tom Brennan. Every damning word was captured clearly on the recording. When the video ended, Linda sat back in her chair. She closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. When she opened them, she looked at Jamal with a mix of anger and sadness. I am so sorry, she said quietly. I am sorry this happened to you in our company. I am sorry you had to experience this. And I am sorry it took you filing a complaint for us to catch it. Thank you, Jamal said. This is clear evidence of discrimination, Linda continued. What they said, what they did. It violates our anti-discrimination policy, our code of conduct, and creates legal liability for the company. This is a terminable offense. But before I proceed, I need to get statements from the interns to corroborate what happened. There was a knock on the door. Linda stood up and opened it. Maya Park stood in the hallway looking nervous and scared. Her eyes widened when she saw Jamal sitting in the office. Ms. Park, please come in, Linda said gently. Don't worry, you are not in trouble. I need to ask you some questions about the interview that took place this morning in conference room B. Maya walked in slowly. She looked at Jamal and he gave her an encouraging nod. She sat down in the chair across from Linda's desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I need you to tell me what you witnessed during Mr. Kim's interview this morning, Linda said. Please be as detailed as possible. This is very important. Maya took a shaky breath. It was wrong, she said. Her voice was quiet at first, then grew stronger. Everything about it was wrong. From the moment Mr. Kim walked in, Derek and Susan treated him differently. They questioned his qualifications in ways that felt inappropriate. They implied he only got into MIT because of affirmative action. Linda was taking notes again. Did you hear anything else? Yes, Maya said. When Derek and Susan stepped outside the conference room, they said terrible things. They called Mr. Kim an affirmative action case. They said he probably had help writing his resume. They laughed at his LinkedIn photo. They talked about rejecting him just to meet their diversity interview quota. Tears started rolling down Maya's cheeks. I am so ashamed that I just sat there. I should have said something. I should have stood up and told them to stop. But I was scared. I am just an intern. I thought they would fire me if I spoke up. You did speak up, Jamal said gently. I heard you and Ryan talking. You said it was wrong and that you should report it. That took courage. Maya looked at him with grateful eyes. I am so sorry this happened to you. You did not deserve any of that. Linda handed Maya a tissue. Ms. Park, your willingness to tell the truth now is important. This is not your fault. Derek and Susan are the ones who behaved inappropriately, not you. This is not the first time, Maya added. I have heard Derek make comments before about diverse candidates. Never this bad, but there have been other incidents. He makes jokes about meeting quotas. He rolls his eyes when HR sends reminders about inclusive hiring practices. I always felt uncomfortable, but I did not know who to tell. Linda made careful notes of everything. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else you think I should know? Maya thought for a moment. Just that Ryan felt the same way I did. We both knew what was happening was wrong. We both wanted to report it. I will be speaking with Mr. Chen next, Linda said. You can go back to your desk now. And Ms. Park, please do not discuss this conversation with anyone, including Mr. Chen, until I have completed my investigation. Can you do that? Yes, Maya said. She stood up and wiped her eyes. Before she left, she looked at Jamal one more time. I hope things work out for you. You seem like a really good person, and you clearly have amazing qualifications. Thank you, Jamal said. After Maya left, Linda sent a message to have Ryan Chen come to her office. While they waited, she turned to Jamal. Her statement aligns perfectly with yours and with what I saw on the video. This is strong evidence. 5 minutes later, Ryan knocked on the door. He looked as nervous as Maya had been. He sat down in the same chair and fidgeted with his hands. Linda asked him the same questions she had asked Maya. Ryan's account matched both Jamal's and Maya's perfectly. He described the inappropriate questions, the comments outside the conference room, and the phone call with Tom Brennan. He also mentioned that he had felt uncomfortable around Derek before this incident. Derek talks about diverse candidates like they are less qualified, Ryan explained. He makes comments about how the company is forced to interview people who don't meet the standards. I always thought it was wrong, but I did not know how to address it without risking my internship. You are doing the right thing now, Linda assured him. Your statement is going to help ensure this behavior stops. After Ryan left, Linda made several more phone calls. Jamal could hear her talking to people in the legal department and someone she called James, who appeared to be a senior executive. Her tone was serious and urgent. We have a situation, Linda said into the phone. Clear discrimination. Multiple witnesses. Video and audio evidence. I need to move quickly on this. Can you meet me in conference room A in 30 minutes? Bring the termination paperwork. She hung up and looked at Jamal. I need to handle the next steps of this investigation. This is going to result in termination for Derek Morrison and Susan Walsh. Their behavior is indefensible, and we cannot allow employees like this to represent our company. What happens now? Jamal asked. Now I will confront them with the evidence, Linda said. They will be terminated immediately. Security will escort them from the building, and after that I would like to speak with you again about your experience and how we can make this right. Jamal stood up. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for taking this seriously. This is my job, Linda said, but more than that, it is the right thing to do. No one should experience what you experienced today. I'm going to make sure Derek and Susan face consequences for their actions. It was early afternoon at TechVision Solutions. Derek Morrison sat at his desk, typing an email on his computer. He was drafting the rejection letter for Jamal Kim. The template was already prepared. All he had to do was fill in the name and send it. Dear Jamal Kim, he typed. Thank you for taking the time to interview with TechVision Solutions. After careful consideration, we have decided to move forward with other candidates whose qualifications more closely match our current needs. We appreciate your interest in our company and wish you the best in your job search. Derek read it over and smiled. Perfect, polite, professional, and completely empty of real meaning. The phrase more closely match our current needs was code for we don't want you. Every recruiter knew it. Every candidate probably knew it too, but it was safe language that could never be challenged. He saved the email as a draft. He would send it in a week or two, after enough time had passed to make it seem like they had carefully considered all candidates. No rush. The longer he waited, the more he could count Jamal's interview toward his quarterly metrics. Susan walked over to his desk with her purse over her shoulder. Ready for lunch? I am starving. Definitely, Derek said. He stood up and grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. Italian place. Sounds perfect. They walked toward the elevators, chatting about their weekend plans. Derek had tickets to a baseball game. Susan was going to her daughter's dance recital. Neither of them thought about Jamal Kim or the interview from that morning. As far as they were concerned, it was over. Another box checked. Another diversity candidate processed and dismissed. The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside. Just as the doors started to close, a hand shot out and stopped them. The doors reopened and Linda Harrison stepped into the elevator. 2 security guards were with her, along with a man in a dark suit carrying a leather folder. Derek and Susan both straightened up. Linda was the VP of Human Resources, someone they saw occasionally at company meetings but rarely interacted with directly. Her presence, especially with security guards, made them nervous. "Derek, Susan," Linda said. Her voice was cold and professional. "I need you both to come with me immediately." "Is something wrong?" Susan asked. She tried to sound casual, but her voice wavered slightly. "We need to discuss a serious matter," Linda said. "Please follow me to conference room A." Derek and Susan exchanged glances. Derek tried to laugh it off. "This sounds serious. What did we do, forget to file our TPS reports?" Nobody laughed at his joke. Linda's expression remained stone-faced. The security guards stood silently on either side of her. The man in the suit stared straight ahead. They all rode the elevator in uncomfortable silence. When the doors opened, Linda led them down the hallway to a large conference room. This was one of the private rooms with solid walls instead of glass. No one could see inside. "Please sit down," Linda said, gesturing to 2 chairs on one side of the table. Derek and Susan sat. Their earlier confidence was starting to crack. Something was very wrong. You did not get called into a private conference room with security guards unless it was serious. Linda sat across from them. The man in the suit sat beside her and opened his leather folder. The security guard stood near the door, hands clasped in front of them. "This is James Mitchell," Linda said, nodding toward the man beside her. "He is our chief legal officer. He is here because we are discussing potential legal violations." Susan's face went pale. "Legal violations? What are you talking about?" Linda folded her hands on the table and looked directly at them. "This morning, you conducted an interview with a candidate named Jamal Kim. During that interview and immediately after, you engaged in discriminatory behavior and made racist comments about Mr. Kim. He has filed a formal complaint with my office." Derek's mouth opened slightly. He tried to recover quickly. "That is ridiculous. We conducted a standard interview. We treated him with complete professionalism." "Did you?" Linda asked. She reached down and pulled out her laptop. She opened it and turned it so Derek and Susan could see the screen. "Then perhaps you can explain this." She pressed play on a video file. The screen showed the interior of conference room B from a security camera mounted in the corner. Derek and Susan could see themselves sitting across from Jamal. They could see Maya and Ryan at the end of the table. The timestamp showed it was from that morning. The video played through the interview. Derek and Susan watched, themselves asking inappropriate questions about how Jamal got into MIT. They heard themselves making comments about culture fit and whether he could handle working with top-tier engineers. Then the video showed them standing up and walking out of the room. The camera angle shifted to show them standing in the hallway, clearly visible through the glass walls. And then their voices came through the speakers. Crystal clear. Every word. "Did you see his resume? Probably had help writing it. Maybe he had a diversity advisor or something. We have to interview him. HR is watching our diversity numbers. At least we can reject him quietly. We will say he is not a culture fit." Susan started crying immediately. Her hands covered her face as the video continued to play. Derek sat frozen, his face turning red. He watched himself on screen making racist jokes and mocking Jamal's qualifications. He heard himself put Tom Brennan on speakerphone and call Jamal an affirmative action case. When the video ended, the conference room was silent except for Susan's quiet sobs. Derek looked like he might be sick. His hands were shaking. "I can explain," Derek started. "Please don't," Linda interrupted. "Because anything you say right now will only make this worse. What we just watched is clear, undeniable evidence of racial discrimination. You made hiring decisions based on the candidate's race. You mocked his qualifications because of his race. You openly discussed using him to meet diversity quotas while never intending to give him a fair chance." James Mitchell leaned forward. "What you did violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. It violates the company's anti-discrimination policy. It violates the Employee Code of Conduct, and it creates massive legal liability for TechVision Solutions." "We were just joking around," Derek said weakly. "It was not serious. It was just talk." "Just talk?" Linda's voice was sharp. "You decided to reject a highly qualified candidate based solely on his race. That is not just talk, that is discrimination. That is illegal." "But he never heard us," Derek tried again. "We were outside the room. He could not hear what we said." Linda shook her head. "First of all, that is not true. The conference room door was open. Mr. Kim heard everything. But even if he had not heard you, it would not matter. Discrimination is discrimination whether the victim hears it or not. You created a hostile work environment. You made decisions based on protected characteristics. The law does not require the victim to overhear your discriminatory comments for them to be illegal. Susan looked up from her hands. Her makeup was running down her face. Are we being fired? Yes, Linda said simply. Your employment with TechVision Solutions is terminated effective immediately. She slid 2 envelopes across the table. Each had a name written on it. Derek Morrison, Susan Walsh. Derek stared at his envelope like it was a snake about to bite him. You can't do this, Derek said. His voice was rising. I have been with this company for 12 years. 12 years. I have excellent performance reviews. I meet all my targets. You cannot fire me over one interview. We can and we are, James Mitchell said. His voice was calm but firm. The evidence is overwhelming. Your conduct is indefensible. Any court would uphold this termination. In fact, by terminating you immediately, the company is protecting itself from further liability. I will sue, Derek threatened. I will take this to a lawyer. This is wrongful termination, James almost smiled. Mr. Morrison, I strongly suggest you consult with an attorney before making any threats. But I can tell you right now, no lawyer will take your case. We have video evidence of you engaging in racial discrimination. We have audio of you admitting to discriminatory intent. We have witness statements from 2 employees who corroborated everything. You have no case. Any lawsuit you file will be dismissed immediately. Derek's face turned from red to white. The reality of the situation was finally sinking in. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. And it was all his own fault. What about our severance? Susan asked quietly. Do we get severance pay? No, Linda said. Termination for cause does not include severance. However, you will receive payment for any unused vacation days and any salary you have earned up to today. That will be processed through normal payroll. This is not fair, Derek said, but his voice had lost its fight. He sounded defeated. What is not fair, Linda said, leaning forward, is what you did to Jamal Kim. He is a highly qualified professional who deserved a fair interview process. Instead, you mocked him, discriminated against him, and planned to reject him based solely on the color of his skin. That is what is not fair. James Mitchell stood up and opened his folder. He pulled out 2 documents and placed them on the table in front of Derek and Susan. These are your termination letters. They detail the reasons for your dismissal and the company's findings. You need to sign these acknowledging that you received them. Derek picked up his letter with shaking hands. He scanned the text. It was all there in black and white. Terminated for violation of anti-discrimination policy. Terminated for creating a hostile work environment. Terminated for conduct that created legal liability for the company. He signed it. What choice did he have? Susan signed hers too, tears still streaming down her face. The security officers will escort you to your desks to collect your personal belongings, Linda said. You will not be allowed to access your computers or company files. Your email accounts have already been deactivated. You will turn in your keycards and then you will leave the building. You are not permitted to return to TechVision property. Is that clear? This is humiliating, Susan whispered. You should have thought about that before you discriminated against a candidate, Linda said. There was no sympathy in her voice. The security guards stepped forward. One stood next to Derek, the other next to Susan. They were not aggressive or threatening, but their presence made it clear this was not optional. Derek stood up slowly. He looked at Linda with a mix of anger and desperation. You are making a mistake. We are good employees. We bring value to this company. You brought a lawsuit waiting to happen, James Mitchell said. The company cannot afford to employ people who break the law. This is not personal. This is business. Derek and Susan were led out of the conference room. They walked through the office toward their desks, security guards on either side. Other employees watched. Some looked away quickly, not wanting to be seen staring. Others whispered to each other. Everyone knew something serious had happened. At their desks, Derek and Susan were given boxes and told they had 5 minutes to collect personal items only. No files, no documents, nothing that belonged to the company. Derek grabbed a few photos and a coffee mug. Susan took a plant from her desk and a framed picture of her daughter. Then they were walked to the elevators and escorted down to the lobby. At the front desk, they turned in their key cards. The receptionist avoided making eye contact. She had clearly been told what was happening. The security guards walked Derek and Susan to the front doors of the building. "Please don't return to this property," one of the guards said. "If you do, it will be considered trespassing." And then they were outside. The doors closed behind them. Derek stood on the sidewalk holding his small box of belongings, staring at the building where he had worked for 12 years. Susan stood next to him, crying quietly. Their careers at Tech Vision Solutions were over, and they had no one to blame but themselves. Within an hour of Derek and Susan leaving the building, word spread through Tech Vision Solutions. Employees did not know all the details, but they knew something serious had happened. 2 recruiters had been fired and escorted out by security. That did not happen for small mistakes. That only happened for serious violations. In the recruiting department, the atmosphere was tense. The remaining recruiters kept their heads down and worked quietly. Nobody wanted to talk about what might have happened. Nobody wanted to be associated with whatever Derek and Susan had done. Maya Park sat at her intern desk, staring at her computer screen without really seeing it. Her hands were still shaking from her meeting with Linda Harrison. She had told the truth about what she witnessed, but now she was terrified about what that might mean for her internship. Would the company see her as a troublemaker? Would they decide interns who reported problems were too much liability? Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Ryan Chen. "Did they call you to HR too?" Maya typed back quickly. "Yes, did you tell them everything?" "Everything. I was so nervous I thought I might throw up. But I told the truth." Maya felt a small sense of relief. At least she was not alone in this. At least Ryan had done the same thing. Before she could respond, she received an email from Linda Harrison asking her to come back to her office. Maya's stomach dropped. This was it. They were going to fire her. She stood up on shaky legs and walked toward the HR department. When she arrived at Linda's office, Ryan was already there, sitting in one of the chairs. He looked as nervous as Maya felt. Linda gestured for Maya to sit down. "I want to thank you both," Linda said. Her voice was warm now, not the cold professional tone from earlier. "What you did today took real courage. You were in vulnerable positions as interns and you spoke up anyway. That shows integrity and character." Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. "We thought we might get fired." "Fired?" Linda looked genuinely surprised. "Absolutely not. You did exactly what we want employees to do when they witness misconduct. You reported it through proper channels. You told the truth. That is the kind of behavior we value at Tech Vision." Ryan let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "So our internships are safe?" "Your internships are completely safe," Linda confirmed. "In fact, I am going to make a note in both of your files about your integrity and willingness to do the right thing. That will be viewed very positively when decisions are made about full-time positions." "What happened to Derek and Susan?" Maya asked. "They were terminated immediately," Linda said. "What they did was serious discrimination, and the company cannot tolerate that behavior. They were escorted from the building and they will not be returning." "Good," Ryan said quietly. Then he looked worried that he had spoken out of turn. "I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but what they did to that candidate was so wrong." "It was wrong," Linda agreed. "And Mr. Kim deserved better. Which is why I want to ask you both something. If Mr. Kim decides to pursue further action, either internally or legally, would you be willing to serve as witnesses? You would not have to do anything right now, but I want to know if you would be willing to support him if needed." "Yes," Maya said immediately. "Absolutely. Me too," Ryan added. "Whatever he needs." "Thank you," Linda said. "I know this has been a difficult day for both of you. If you need to take the rest of the afternoon off, you can. No questions asked." "I think I would like to go home," Maya admitted. "I don't think I can focus on work right now." "Me neither," Ryan said. "That is completely understandable," Linda told them. "Go home, get some rest, and come back tomorrow when you are ready. And if either of you need to talk to anyone about what you experienced, we have counseling services available through our employee assistance program." Maya and Ryan left Linda's office feeling lighter than they had all day. They walked toward the elevators together. "We did the right thing," Maya said. "Yeah," Ryan agreed. "I was scared, but we did the right thing." Meanwhile, Linda returned to her desk and picked up her phone. She dialed a number and waited. After 3 rings, a voice answered. "This is David Park." "David, it is Linda. I need to update you on a situation we had today. Do you have a few minutes?" David Park was the CEO of TechVision Solutions. He was a serious man who cared deeply about the company's reputation and values. Of course. What happened? Linda explained the entire situation. She told him about Jamal's complaint, the video evidence, the witness statements, and the termination of Derek and Susan. David listened in silence, and Linda could hear him taking notes. "This is serious," David said when she finished. "Do we have any other legal exposure?" "James Mitchell is reviewing everything," Linda said. "But we acted quickly and decisively. We have clear documentation of the discrimination and clear documentation of our response. We terminated the offenders immediately. That should protect us from most legal liability." "What about the candidate?" David asked. "This Mr. Kim, is he going to sue us?" "I don't know," Linda admitted. "I am going to call him shortly and ask him to come back in. I think you should meet with him personally and apologize on behalf of the company." "Absolutely," David said immediately. "Set it up. I want to make this right." "There is one more thing," Linda said. "Mr. Kim's qualifications are outstanding. He passed all his technical interviews with flying colors. The engineers loved him. The only reason he was not being moved forward was because of Derek's discrimination. I think we should offer him the position." David was quiet for a moment. "Does that seem like we are only offering it because he complained? Like we are trying to buy his silence?" "I considered that," Linda said. "But his qualifications are legitimate. He earned the right to be considered for this role. Derek prevented that from happening fairly. I think we owe it to him to complete the process properly. We can bring him back to meet with the actual engineering team, give him a real interview, and then make a decision based on his merit." "Okay," David agreed. "But let me be very clear. If we offer him a job, it is because he earned it, not because we are trying to make a problem go away. I don't want anyone thinking we are hiring him out of guilt or fear of a lawsuit." "Understood," Linda said. "I will make that clear to everyone involved." After hanging up with David, Linda pulled up Jamal's contact information. She had asked him to wait in a nearby coffee shop while she handled the situation with Derek and Susan. Now it was time to update him. She called his cell phone. He answered on the second ring. "Mr. Kim, this is Linda Harrison. Can you come back to the office? Our CEO would like to meet with you." Jamal had been sitting in the coffee shop for the past hour, drinking tea and trying to process everything that had happened. He had filed a complaint, given his statement, and then been asked to leave while HR handled the situation. He had no idea what was happening now. "Yes," Jamal said. "I can be there in 10 minutes. Perfect. Come to the main lobby and I will meet you there." Jamal paid for his tea and walked back to the TechVision building. The same receptionist was at the desk, and this time she smiled at him warmly. Something had changed. He could feel it. Linda met him in the lobby and led him to the executive floor. They walked past offices and conference rooms until they reached a large corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. A nameplate on the door read, "David Park, Chief Executive Officer." Linda knocked and a voice called for them to enter. Inside, a man in his early 50s stood up from behind his desk. He was wearing a suit but no tie, and his expression was serious but not unfriendly. "Mr. Kim," David said, extending his hand. "I am David Park. Please sit down." Jamal shook his hand and sat in one of the leather chairs across from the desk. Linda sat in the other chair. David remained standing for a moment, then sat on the edge of his desk, facing Jamal directly. "I want to start by apologizing," David said. "What happened to you today should never have happened in my company. The way Derek Morrison and Susan Walsh treated you was completely unacceptable. It was discriminatory, it was cruel, and it violated everything this company claims to stand for." Jamal was surprised by the directness of the apology. He had expected corporate language and careful wording. Instead, David was speaking plainly and honestly. "Thank you," Jamal said. "I want you to know that we took immediate action," David continued. "Both Derek and Susan were terminated this afternoon. They were escorted from the building and will not be returning. We have video evidence of their behavior, and their termination was completely justified." "I appreciate that," Jamal said. "I was not sure if anyone would believe me or take it seriously." "Linda took it very seriously," David said, nodding toward her. "She investigated immediately, gathered evidence, and made sure we responded appropriately. That is what we should do when discrimination occurs." David walked around his desk and sat down in his chair. He leaned forward with his hands folded on the desk. Now I want to talk to you about your candidacy for the software engineering position. Your technical interviews were excellent. The engineers who spoke with you gave you very high marks. Your qualifications are outstanding. The only reason you were not moved forward in the process was because of Derek's discrimination. I assumed the opportunity was gone, Jamal said. It doesn't have to be, David said. If you are still interested, we would like to bring you back to meet with the actual engineering team you would be working with. None of them were involved in the recruiting process. They are good people who will evaluate you based on your skills and experience. After that meeting, if it goes well, we would like to make you an offer. Jamal was quiet for a moment. Part of him wanted to walk away from TechVision and never look back. But another part of him recognized that the company had done the right thing once they learned about the discrimination. They had acted quickly, decisively, and appropriately. I need some time to think about it, Jamal said. Of course, David said. Take all the time you need. I don't want to pressure you. I know today was difficult, and you have every right to be angry and hurt. But I want you to know that Derek and Susan do not represent this company. Most of our employees are good people who want to work in a fair and inclusive environment. I believe you, Jamal said. I could see it in those two interns. They were uncomfortable with what was happening. They wanted to speak up. Maya and Ryan, Linda said. They both gave statements supporting your complaint. They showed real integrity today. David stood up and extended his hand again. Take a few days to think about it. Talk to people you trust, and if you decide you want to move forward with the interview process, just let Linda know. We will set everything up. Jamal shook his hand and left the office. As he walked out of the building, he felt different than he had when he arrived that morning. He had been discriminated against, yes, but he had also been heard. He had been believed. And the people responsible had faced consequences. Maybe, he thought, there was hope for this company after all. That evening, back at home, Jamal's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from an unknown number. He opened it. Mr. Kim, this is Maya Park. I got your number from the HR file. I hope that is okay. I just wanted to say I'm so sorry for what happened today. You did not deserve any of that. You were so professional and dignified, and I admire how you handled everything. Thank you for not letting them get away with it. You made this company better by speaking up. Jamal read the message twice. Then he typed a response. Thank you, Maya. What you and Ryan did took courage. Speaking up when you are in a vulnerable position is never easy. You should be proud of yourselves. You did the right thing. He sent the message and set his phone down. Tomorrow he would call his mentor and ask for advice about whether to continue with TechVision. Tonight he would rest and be grateful that at least some people still believed in doing the right thing. 1 week had passed since the incident at TechVision Solutions. Jamal had spent the time thinking, talking with mentors and family, and weighing his options. His former manager from San Francisco told him that a company's response to discrimination said more about their values than the discrimination itself. On Monday morning, Jamal called Linda Harrison. I would like to continue with the interview process, he said. I want to meet the engineering team. Linda sounded genuinely pleased. I am so glad to hear that. When would you like to come in? They scheduled the interview for Wednesday. This time, Jamal approached the TechVision building with different feelings. He was still cautious, but he was also curious. He wanted to see if the rest of the company was different from Derek and Susan. Linda met him in the lobby just as she had before. But this time, she walked him to a different part of the building. They went up to the 3rd floor where the engineering department was located. The space was open and collaborative, with workstations arranged in small clusters. Engineers sat at their desks, some typing code, others discussing problems at whiteboards. This is where you would be working, Linda said. Let me introduce you to Keisha Williams. She leads the team you would be joining. They walked to a corner office where a black woman in her early 40s sat reviewing documents. She looked up when they approached and stood with a warm smile. Jamal felt some of his tension ease. He had not realized how much it would matter to see someone who looked like him in a leadership position. Mr. Kim, Keisha said, shaking his hand firmly, I am so glad you decided to come back. I heard about what happened with the recruiting team, and I want you to know that is not what TechVision is about, at least not in my department. Thank you, Jamal said. I also want you to know that I reviewed your technical interviews from before, Keisha continued. You impressed everyone. Your approach to problem solving is exactly what we need on this team. Today is not about testing you again. It is about letting you see who we are and deciding if this is somewhere you want to work. They spent the next 3 hours together. Keisha introduced Jamal to the other engineers on the team. They were a diverse group of different races, genders, and ages. Everyone was welcoming and enthusiastic about their work. They showed Jamal the projects they were working on and explained the challenges they were facing. One engineer, a man named Marcus, pulled Jamal aside during a break. "I heard through the grapevine what happened with those recruiters," Marcus said quietly. "I'm glad they got fired. We have been trying to make this company more inclusive for years, but people like that make it so hard. I hope you give us a chance to show you we are not all like them." "I can see that," Jamal said. "Everyone here has been great." The technical discussions were engaging. Jamal found himself excited about the problems the team was solving. They were building systems that would handle massive amounts of data and needed someone with his experience in scalability and performance optimization. It was exactly the kind of challenge he had been looking for. At the end of the day, Keisha walked Jamal back to the lobby. "So what do you think?" she asked. "I think this is a team I would be proud to join," Jamal said honestly. "Good," Keisha said with a smile, "because I am going to recommend to David that we make you an offer. A good offer, one that reflects your skills and experience." 2 days later, Jamal received a formal job offer from TechVision Solutions. The salary was excellent, better than what he had been making in San Francisco. The benefits were strong and the career development path was clear. Most importantly, the offer letter included a personal note from David Park, reiterating the company's commitment to creating an inclusive workplace and thanking Jamal for giving them another chance. Jamal accepted the offer. His first day was 3 weeks later. Keisha met him at the door and personally walked him through the onboarding process. She introduced him to every member of the engineering department, not just his immediate team. She made sure he had everything he needed and that he felt welcomed. By lunchtime, Jamal was sitting with a group of engineers in the cafeteria, discussing a technical problem one of them was facing. It felt natural and comfortable. Nobody treated him differently because of what had happened with the recruiters. Nobody walked on eggshells around him. They treated him like a colleague who belonged there. As the weeks went by, Jamal settled into his role. He made significant contributions to a major project the team was developing. His ideas for improving the system's performance were implemented and saved the company both time and money. His manager praised his work in team meetings, and his colleagues respected his expertise. One afternoon, Jamal was working at his desk when he received an email from Maya Park. She had finished her internship and had been offered a full-time position in the HR department. Linda Harrison had personally recruited her, impressed by the integrity she had shown during the incident with Derek and Susan. "I wanted to thank you again," Maya wrote in her email. "Watching you stand up for yourself taught me an important lesson about courage and doing what is right. I'm going to try to make HR a place where people feel safe reporting problems. I hope we can work together to make TechVision better." Jamal replied with encouragement and congratulations. It felt good to know that something positive had come from that difficult day. Meanwhile, Derek and Susan were facing the consequences of their actions beyond just losing their jobs. Word had spread in the tech industry about why they had been fired. Not through official channels, but through professional networks and informal conversations. When Derek applied to other companies, his applications were quietly passed over. When Susan's name came up in hiring discussions, recruiters remembered hearing something about discrimination and moved on to other candidates. Both of them struggled to find comparable positions. The tech industry was smaller than people realized, and reputations mattered. They were forced to take jobs at lower levels and in different industries, starting over in their careers. The cost of their discrimination was high, and it would follow them for years. 6 months after starting at TechVision, Jamal was thriving. He had been promoted to senior engineer and was leading a small team of his own. He mentored junior engineers and contributed to hiring decisions. Keisha trusted him with important responsibilities, and his colleagues valued his input. One day, Linda Harrison sent out a company-wide announcement about new diversity and inclusion initiatives. All recruiting staff would undergo enhanced anti-bias training with regular refresher courses. A new oversight process was established where HR would randomly audit interviews, and candidates could report concerns through anonymous channels. A diversity council was being formed with real authority to review hiring practices and workplace culture. Jamal was asked to serve on the diversity council. He agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to help create the kind of workplace he wanted to be part of. The changes were not just performative. The company was serious about learning from what had happened. They hired a diversity consultant to review their entire recruiting process. They updated policies and procedures. They held town hall meetings where employees could voice concerns. Some people resisted the changes, but most welcomed them. One afternoon, Jamal was at his desk when he noticed a young woman standing nearby looking nervous. She was Latina, probably fresh out of college, and she held a visitor badge in her hand. She was clearly looking for someone. "Can I help you?" Jamal asked. "I am Sophia Ramirez," she said. "Today is my first day. I am supposed to find Keisha Williams, but I am a little lost." Jamal smiled and stood up. "I work on Keisha's team. Come on, I will take you to her office." As they walked through the department, Sophia looked around with wide eyes. "This place is bigger than I expected. I am a little nervous about fitting in." Jamal paused and looked at her. He saw in Sophia the same nervousness he had felt when he first arrived. The same worry about whether she would be accepted and valued. "Can I tell you something?" Jamal asked. "When I first interviewed here, I experienced discrimination from the recruiters. They made racist comments about me and tried to reject me based on the color of my skin." Sophia's eyes widened. "What happened?" "I reported it," Jamal said, "and the company took it seriously. They fired the people responsible immediately. They investigated, they made changes, and they offered me the job based on my qualifications. I have been here for 6 months now, and it has been a good experience." "Why are you telling me this?" Sophia asked. "Because I want you to know that if you ever face any problems, if anyone ever treats you unfairly, or makes you feel like you don't belong, the company will listen. They will take it seriously. You have a voice here, and you should use it if you need to." Sophia smiled with relief. "Thank you. That actually makes me feel a lot better." "Good," Jamal said. "And I also want you to know that you belong here because of your skills and talents. You earned this position. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." They reached Keisha's office, and Jamal introduced Sophia. Keisha welcomed her warmly and began the onboarding process. Jamal returned to his desk, feeling good about the conversation. That evening, as Jamal was packing up to go home, he reflected on how much had changed since that terrible interview day. He had faced discrimination, but he had not let it defeat him. He had spoken up, and the company had listened. He had taken a risk by accepting the job, and it had paid off. More importantly, the incident had created positive change. New policies were in place. New training was required. New oversight existed. Future candidates would be protected in ways they had not been before. And people like Maya and Sophia were joining a workplace that was actively working to be better. Jamal's computer screen showed the code he had been writing that day. It was elegant and efficient, solving a complex problem with simple logic. He saved his work and shut down his computer. Tomorrow he would continue building systems and mentoring colleagues. Tomorrow he would help make Tech Vision a place where talent was recognized and valued regardless of race or background. As he walked out of the building into the evening air, Jamal thought about Derek and Susan. He did not feel satisfaction about their firings or their career struggles. He did not celebrate their suffering, but he did feel that justice had been served. More than that, he felt proud. Proud that he had not stayed silent. Proud that he had given the company a chance to do the right thing. Proud that his courage had created ripples that would help protect others who came after him. He had walked into Tech Vision Solutions as a candidate facing discrimination. He was walking out now as a valued engineer and leader. His story was not just about what had been done to him. It was about what he had done in response, and that made all the difference. The next morning, Jamal arrived at work early. He had a meeting with his team to discuss a new project. As he rode the elevator up to the engineering floor, he felt at peace. This was where he belonged. He had earned his place here through his skills, his experience, and his contributions. When the elevator doors opened, he saw Sophia at a desk near his, already working on her first assignment. She looked up and gave him a small wave. He waved back and walked to his desk. His colleagues greeted him with friendly nods and morning hellos. The day began like any other, with work to do and problems to solve. But Jamal knew this was not just any other day. This was the result of standing up for himself, of refusing to accept discrimination, and of believing that change was possible. His presence in this office, doing the work he loved and contributing his talents, was a victory, not just for him but for everyone who had ever been judged unfairly or denied opportunities because of their race. He opened his computer and began to work. The code flowed from his fingers to the screen, solving problems and building systems. This was what he was meant to do. This was the opportunity he had earned, and nobody could take that away from him. In the conference room down the hall, Linda Harrison was meeting with the Diversity Council, including Maya, who had become an important voice in HR's efforts to improve the company culture. They were reviewing data on hiring practices and discussing new initiatives. The work was ongoing and would never be complete. Creating an inclusive workplace was not a destination but a journey, but it was a journey worth taking. And it had started because one man, Jamal Kim, had refused to stay silent when discrimination occurred. His courage had sparked change, his integrity had inspired others, and his presence at Tech Vision Solutions was a reminder that talent deserves recognition, regardless of race or background. The story of Jamal Kim and the racist recruiters became a lesson for everyone at Tech Vision. It was shared in training sessions and discussed in team meetings, not to embarrass anyone or create fear, but to illustrate what was not acceptable and what the company would do when such behavior occurred. Derek and Susan's names were never mentioned in these discussions. They had become cautionary tales, examples of how personal prejudice and unprofessional behavior could destroy careers. Their legacy was not in what they had accomplished, but in what they had cost themselves and the lessons their actions had taught others. Jamal's legacy, on the other hand, was still being written. Every project he completed, every colleague he mentored, every contribution he made added to his story. He was not just the man who had been discriminated against and fought back. He was an engineer, a leader, a mentor, and a valued member of his team. And that was exactly who he had always been, even when Derek and Susan could not see it. His qualifications, his talent, and his character had never been in question, except to people whose judgment was clouded by prejudice. As the sun set on another day at Tech Vision Solutions, Jamal saved his work and prepared to go home. He had accomplished a lot today, and tomorrow he would accomplish more. This was his life now. This was his career. This was his future. And it was everything he had worked for and deserved.